Hello once again everyone, and welcome back to my continued breakdown of Vermintide's characters. Now last week, we went over the one-handed kind of signature sword slash axe for Bardin weapon, and then this week I'm going to go over the example that kind of takes that and adds to it. It's the one-handed plus, right? Either an offhand weapon, or a new version of the weapon, or what have you. Now before I get started, thank you very much for correcting me on my pronunciation of Sienna. I don't know why I was adding an R to her name. I don't know, I'm silly. And also, as a note, there are a lot of movesets that I gotta keep track of right now, so I will be consulting my notes throughout the video. Apologies for that. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, our first one on the list is gonna be Marcus, and Marcus has two kind of one-handed plus style weapons. He's got his mace, and technically it's called a sword. It's a relatively stubby little sword, nice little chopper, so I would call it more a large knife, but either way. And then he has his sword and shield. So we'll start off with the mace and sword. I don't have a mace, I guess go fund me. So I am using my truncheon, and then I've got my dagger in place. But as far as his stance goes, he is going to be, I believe, yes, right foot forward, down in basically flug, with his other hand kind of held down here. Very similar to Saltspire's position, actually. And as far as his first person, the weapons will be more raised. But, first versus third person, we'll be talking more about that later. But his striking is going to be relatively simple, and we're just going to have down from right, then back across with the mace from the left. So 1, 2. Then we're going to cover that opening. As you see, when I finish, I open up my chest quite a bit. We're going to have a quick 1, 2 with the dagger. Now, he could be bringing his foot up, or he could not. These quick 1, 2 with the dagger slash sword, it's just a nice little X pattern. I could see that as being used to either he's just bashed someone in the head, really giving them a hard hit, and he's just cutting into that new target. Or alternatively, he could be seen as, we're striking, oh no, I'm kind of open, let me cover myself real quick with a series of cuts as I withdraw. Either way, he's going to favor the right hand, then follow through with quick with the left hand. Now, as far as his heavies go, there's an important thing we need to talk about, which is the idea of crossing up your arms and striking, or striking to center target with two weapons. Do not do this with real weapons. You shouldn't even do it with fake weapons, but I suffer for this, right? You don't have to look far to find videos of people seriously injuring themselves doing this. Don't try it, just appreciate it. But, either way. So for his heavies, it's just going to be pretty much you put that weapons together, like so. Strike down from one side, strike down from the other. Nothing out of the ordinary. His block, though, is going to be a nice tuta caperta, which roughly translates to like crossing weapons, basically. So that forms this little X pattern, which is great for me blocking incoming blows. I get them in that sort of V shape, and that is a very strong shape to make, as defending with just the axe or just his shorter sword would be a little bit trickier. So multiplying them together, great idea. But all in all, relatively simple, about what I would expect from Marcus. Now, as far as his next moveset, we're going to just go over his basic sword and shield. I'll save the Bretonnian sword and shield for another time, but he is fighting, and all the characters do use strap shields so far, which is an important thing to know the difference of. A strap shield is where it is literally attached to your arm like so, versus a center grip shield is where I'm basically holding onto a handle. Now, regardless of size, if you have a center grip shield, the rotational point is going to be the wrist, which means you can move it a lot more and do slightly different things with it, versus if it's strapped to my arm, my center of rotation for that shield is now going to be my shoulder, which means that I'm not necessarily more limited, but I have to apply more of my body into it if I want to be moving it around. So far, all the characters do relatively simple things, so we won't need to go into it too much. But Kerber's now going to be left foot forward, the shield just kind of held down here, and now kind of adopting sort of a simple outside guard as same as Kerillian does. Now from here, we're going to be launching into a very simple pattern, which is going to be just basically down from right, down from left, and then across from right. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, we're back into guard. Here's that once again. 1, 2, 3, back into guard. I'm not really a huge fan of this one as being the finish for that pattern, as now the recovery is a little bit weird. It leaves you pretty open. I would have liked maybe one more coming back from the other side, but all in all, not too bad. As far as his heavies go, though, we get something a little more interesting. So he's going to lead up with a bash. So he's going to pull the shield back and strike with the rim, right? Now, people do ask me about striking with shields. In general, yes, it was absolutely done historically. Don't do it to people these days. It's not very kind. There's no real way to make it safe. Don't do it. But we do get mention of even like throwing the shield. So you see how it came off there, and things of that nature. So mind you. But bashing with the shield against Skaven or Northlanders, go for it, right? Boom. And then we're going to follow that through with a stab. Now, Marcus's stab is a lot closer to nails down, so maybe he's been taking some advice from Saltspire, and or this is the standard Imperial way of doing it. But either way, bash, stab, and then from here we're going to follow through with just bringing our sword across and a hard mittel from our left. So, once again, Marcus kind of shows us that he'll cut from any direction with any weapon combo, so that's kind of cool to see. So one more time through, bash, stab, back across, we're back into guard. And then for his block, he's just going to hold the shield in front of him, which it'll do the trick. Now, next on the list is going to be Victor. Now for Victor, I chose to use his falchion and axe, which I'm not entirely sure if this is meant to actually be a Solomon Kane reference, as he is also known for dual-wielding various weapons, but I think it was really cool. Now, an interesting detail is that he will favor the axe in his right hand. Now, this makes sense, as Victor, though he's shown himself to be functionally ambidextrous, is definitely originally a right-hander, and so favoring a heavier weapon for your dominant hand, and then using the lighter weapon for your left makes absolute sense. Now, as far as using his full-size falchion in his left hand, this, to me, seems like an active choice. Because since defending yourself with an axe is quite difficult, they're not really designed for it, switching the longer weapon over to the side that, were we talking realistic fighting, you'd be more often than not blocking with this. So, for example, in comes cut, block, then hit, as that works quite well. That makes quite a bit of sense. But Victor will be launching attacks with it more often than not. Now, his stance is going to be pretty much the same as when he was holding just the falchion alone. His left hand is held down kind of in an alber, and then his axe is held up in a nice flug. Now from here, he's going to once again be favoring the axe, dropping into the sword, then favoring the axe again. So it's going to be launching off, we're going to pull the arm back, 1, which opens ourselves up. Then we're going to cover that with the sword with a 1, 2, and we're going to bring it back with the axe just straight down the line. Now, oftentimes when you swing with the axe, if you hit a solid target, you will kind of clear it again. You'll sort of rip it out, which I do like that detail. It looks really good, especially on this hit. So, here's that once again for his lights. 1, 1, 2, 3, we're ripped. A very nice, sweet combo. I really like doing it on Northlanders, looks great. For his heavies, it's going to be relatively simplistic, as all we're going to be doing is, once again, don't do this at home. We're going to be opening up and bringing them straight down, opening them up, bringing them together. Now, when you do this on head, looks cool, but once again, I cannot stress the danger of doing this, so please don't do it. But 1, boom, open, together, back to guard. Now, as far as his block goes, this is probably the first time I've been disappointed in Victor, as he's not quite doing a tuta caprota. He's holding them just kind of folded over each other. Now, you might say, doesn't that do the same thing? But not really. When I hold them crossed, even if they're not actually touching, anything that hits either weapon will be directed down into that middle point where they're overlapping, and that will protect me by having both of my arms underneath it. If they're like this, it lands on both equally and can slide any direction at once and will cause me to collapse, which causes that X, which is not as strong as you can see. So, a bit strange, but oh well, right? And that's just going to be his block. Now, as far as Kerillian goes, she gets 2 offhand weapons, both of which are quite interesting. We're going to start off with the sword and dagger. Now, from here, in third person, she's going to be standing with her left foot forward, the sword kind of held, the dagger kind of held across her lead leg, and then just holding that outside guard again. But in first person, she reverses her dagger. I don't know why they didn't show it reversed in the third person. I think that's a bit of a disappointment, but either way. Now, as far as reversing a parrying dagger or just a dagger in your other hand, you do not see it a ton with daggers like this. So this is a dedicated parrying dagger, also just a dagger of later period, where you start to see more complicated stuff on them, etc. more often than not, when you see a reverse dagger in historical stuff, you're going to see reversed with simpler handguards. So, for example, dirks, rondels, long knives, things like that, where you can usually keep it relatively tight and sort of use it like a shield, or alternatively use it to hook or things of that nature. But when it comes to having a crossbar or things of that nature, you'll usually have it point forward, as it basically serves like a normal sword at that point. Now, her reversing hers, nothing really to complain about, but she doesn't use it a whole lot, which is a bit of a shame. So our cutting combo now is going to be, we're going to lead with a cut from below, come back down that line with a cut from above, then we're going to slice up with this dagger. Now this little guy, I love launching it on Skaven because when you catch them, it just opens their face up. I'm a really big fan of it. So here's that again, up from below, down, slice, then we're going to fill that gap with her stab once more. I really like this combo. It looks great, very fluid. So here's that one more time. Up, down, slice, stab. We're back into guard. Love it. Looks great. Now, as far as her heavies, we have 2 hand reversals to do, which is a bit of a doozy. So her first one, she's going to reverse into sword grip. Again, don't do this. She's going to cross over, cut through target. Then we're going to reverse both into ice pick and double stab. I know it shows her fluidity, if you will, but I'm not a huge fan of these heavies. The double stab is kind of cool, but when you try to do them for real, it's a little bit awkward. I think it would have been nicer to have maybe lead with the double stab or something along those lines, so you're only reversing one weapon as opposed to having to reverse one, reverse both. That's a little weird, and then reverse one again. But maybe it's just showing her dexterity. But either way, here's that one more time. So reverse into sword, back, cut, reverse both into ice pick, back, thrust, reverse just the sword back, and we're here again. Now, as far as her block, I don't get what this block is supposed to do. She brings her sword across herself like so, and the dagger's just kind of hovering here. I don't know what this is supposed to do, but it looks kind of cool. So there's that. I think it would have been nicer to have her either just do the caparza by reversing, or if we didn't want to show the reversal of the hand, maybe just something more crosswise like this. But this doesn't really make a ton of sense. This is sort of like a hanging point, so you could maybe cover, hook, hit, but it's relatively low, so bit of a strange one. Now, as far as her 2 swords, that's when things are going to be a little bit disjointed, and apologies, I will probably struggle through this a bit. She's once again going to be left foot forward, same pretty much stance, just now the sword is held in the sword grip, as you would, and we're going to lead with our left hand. So what we're going to do from here is going to be a left down, so pull the tip back, cut. We're now going to bring our arm around and cut from our left side with our right hand. So down from right with your left, down from left with your right. I actually relatively like this as an opening because it's unexpected, right? By throwing out my lead hand first, I'm striking with the closest weapon. You would expect me to follow from my dominant side, but instead I bring it around and down. So I like that. I think that's cool. But then it gets tricky, right? So down, down, we're now going to bring up with our right arm, and then up with our left, and that folds us back in. Not bad, just a little bit tricky to do. So here's that again. Down, down, up, up, back into guard. I think I would have liked it a little bit better if we'd gone down, down, up, and then maybe up again, or maybe even a middle, something along those lines, something that allows her to roll it kind of back around her head. But either way, pretty fun, pretty cool, and then her doubles are just, not doubles, her heavies are just going to be crossing and things of that nature. I think she actually just goes cross and then across. Don't do it. But anyway. Now, from there, we're going to move on to Sienna. And Sienna surprised me. I had no idea that she had a version of her normal sword like this. And I really, really like the moveset. So, her sword is going to be a fire sword. I think it's supposed to be enchanted, maybe imbued. I don't quite know what it's meant to be. If someone knows the lore behind that, please tell me. I'm super curious. But either way, it's just going to be her normal sword as it was before, but now there's fire imbued in it, right? Either with her magic or the sword itself is enchanted. I don't know. But her stance is going to shift a little bit. So last time she was right foot forward. Now she's also going to be left foot forward. are going to be held kind of in a down, sort of low, like wizard power position, right? Now, from here, we're going to use quite a bit of her kind of offhand weapon, which in this case is her magic. So her basic cutting combo is going to be very simple, and all that's going to be, is just going to be down from right, down from left, stab, right? Really great to see, awesome. So 1, 2, thrust. It's where heavies is where things get interesting. So from here, her initial heavy is going to be spooling up some fire in her left hand, and then raking the enemy with presumably either her nails, the spell, or she does have some gauntlets that are relatively spiky. So either way, just charge it up, rake. Her next heavy, she's going to imbue her sword with the magic. And I always love, I'm a sucker for animations that do this. But she's going to imbue it, and then she's just going to come down with a hard strike. I believe? Yes. Yes. So, here's that together. Fire, cut, imbue, cut, and then we're just back into guard. And then her parry is just going to be hanging point as it was before, just now left foot forward. I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity, as I would have liked to see maybe like when she does her bash attack, she could cover and then shoot out a little bit of fire with her bash. Something along those lines would be really cool. You know, nice bit of sword and sorcery. But either way, really like the moveset. It's awesome. Now, finally, we're going to come down to Bardin. And Bardin's offhand weapon is, of course, going to be a shield. Now, I won't be getting on my knees this time, but what we're going to have from him is he's going to be left foot forward, sort of a low outside, and from here, it's just going to be a nice simple cutting pattern of 1, 2, straight down the middle, clear. At least I believe that is correct. Yes. So, 1, 2, straight down, we're good. Now, when it comes to his heavies, we're going to see, again, a relatively simple pattern, but I really like it, is just going to be bashing with the shield, boom, nice hard heavy across, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So, bash, across, down. Now that last down animation's a little funky, as it looks like he's spooling up to swing from the outside, but then he brings it over his head. So I don't know if it's maybe even meant to be a bit of a feint. So what I mean by there is, when he's just struck from here, his arm will come back on this angle. And so it looks like I'm about to swing from my right, but instead, he brings it over. So I don't know if that's intentional or not, but either way, it does show a little bit of Bardin that we haven't seen before. So here's that one more time. Bash, strike, down from middle, and that's a dead Klazaki Doom. Or, whatever. My dwarfish is not good. But, either way, that's going to be our grab bag of the various one-hand plus of our Vermintide characters. I hope you all have enjoyed quite a bit, as this was quite a bit of fun to do, but I really like it that some of them, like for example Victor or Kruber, still favor their right arm and then supplement it with something. Sienna, of course, using her magic as their offhand weapon is awesome. I think showing Kerillian's fluidity and dexterity with both her hands is a good choice. And then, of course, Bardin, he was the dwarf. We knew what he was going to get. But at some point, I'll probably cover his Slayer stuff. But either way, next week, I am going to stop trying to do so many characters at once, and instead we're going to focus on Kerillian's two-handed sword, which is a really cool moveset. I'm really looking forward to that one. And then I will probably, if I'm feeling froggy, cover Victor's flail. But either way, thank you all very much for the support you've been seeing. I hope you continue to enjoy the videos, and we shall be going over some other movesets another time.